Okay, introducing the Granny Square Balaclava. It's so cute, this one. It's got these tight little granny squares and then these crocheted ribbed sections down around the face and then around the neck. Really good for making it nice and snuggly. And the granny squares being done tightly means that it's good for, the wind chill. We do a bunch of these, 16 of them altogether, and then we join them at the edges like that, so they've got this like raised edge, if you see, and then we grab the rib and attach those bits. So let's have a look at the colours I'm choosing. A peachy colour, purple, and this really nice lilac, well into this colour at the moment. We use a 3mm hook with DK yarn, so it's nice and tight. In America that's a light worsted. Do I pronounce that right? Worsted? I don't know. Anyway, so you grab your yarn, single thread of it, and I'm just going to do a good slow demonstration of that first slip knot to begin with. And there we are. Hook that onto the hook, and then we're going to slip stitch 3. Now we want to join to the very first stitch, so we're going to do a slip stitch once we've gone through there. Slip stitch to join both ends, and then we've got our circle to get started. Chain 2, that counts as our first stitch in the row count, and now wrap around once and go into the center of that ring, pull the yarn through, wrap around again, pull it through 2 of them, and then wrap around and pull it through both the end ones. So this is called a treble in English terminology, or a double in American. And I also want to point out that when I'm doing these, carry on doing the same stitch all the way around now, but as I'm doing them I am doing it over this end from the knot. You'll notice at the end when you are finished the round, you can pull that nice and tight then. Oh god, sorry, just losing stitches. Okay, so yeah, we're doing these trebles through the center. It's going to be 12 stitches in total in the round, so that's the first chain 2 is 1 stitch, counts as 1 stitch, and then we'll do 11 more around that trailing end there. You don't need to do that, but when I show you that, I feel like it's really important to do that as you're making the granny square, so that you don't have a load of work at the end to like sew in the ends. You're sort of sealing that end in there as much as it needs to be as you go. So we're going to have 11 more, 12 in total, and then when we get to the end of this row, we're just going to do a slip stitch into the top of the chain 2 that you began with, and when we get there, let's count them. Yes, we get there, we just go into that stitch there, which is the top of that chain 2, do a slip stitch, bring it through, and then you'll finish this row. Let's have a look at the back. That's where you've gone over that trailing end. You pull it tight, and that stops that hole in the middle being wide, and then you can actually just chop that off if you want. We're gonna focus on the next row. So just chop this, pull the end through and then pull it tight. And then there you go, you've got your first row done. Now we choose a different colour. I'm going to choose this peachy orangey colour, and we just cast on same way as we did at the beginning of the first row. We do our little slip knot. Pick any place. I usually do it next to the old trailing thing because I'm gonna crochet over that trailing end and a little bit of the end that I've just created here as well. We are going to do the same stitch, so it's chain 2, and then we wrap around, go in and through the first 2, through the last 2, and then let me get my end sorted here. My future self thanks me for doing this. It is a bit fiddly. I'm making it look even more fiddly than it really is. But anyway, we're doing the corners now, so we're just gonna do a little granny cluster of 3 here, which is the first, as you know, the first chain 2, it counts as 1 stitch, so that's 3. Now we're going to chain 1 for the corner, and we're going to go into the same hole and do 3 trebles in English. They're called doubles in American. I'm just going to call it a granny cluster. So we're going to do another granny cluster here. And that's the corner done. That's going to end up like that when we've got these next row going into the corner in that chain space. So we're going across 3 because that's 1 granny cluster from down below. As if you remember, there's 4 from this first row. So across 3 and around the ends. Let's do a granny cluster here, 3 trebles. See those ends? They're just tucking in nicely. So 3, and then we do a chain 1 to go around the corner, and then into the same space again we do another granny cluster. So 3 more here. And now we're going to go straight across. There is no chain in between the 2 of the corners here. We're not doing chains because that makes more holes and more space for wind to get through. So we're going across 3 again. So 1 more granny cluster, and we're going to do the same again in these next 2 corners. So 1 set of 3 here, a chain 1 for the corner, and then another set of 3 in the same hole. And then the same again for the next one. And I'm just going to speed this one up a bit because it's exactly the same. 2 granny clusters with a chain in the middle for the corner. But this bit here, that last stitch, I'm going to show you to be clear where we go in, and we just join with a slip stitch, and then we cast it off because we're changing the colour. I'll probably show you the back here and tidy it up as well a little bit just before we get started. Yeah, I like to tidy up as I go along because I hate doing this part. So if I can do it as I go along, then that saves me from having to do 16 of them at the end. God forbid. Okay, so the next colour, I'm using a 3rd colour. This one is the purple. I'm going to cast on again in the same way. We can go casting on anywhere. I'm going to choose one of the corners next to that that thread so that I can crochet it in with this end from the purple as well. Just, you know, helping out my future self with the old tidying up as I go along thing. I do the same when I'm cooking. Does anyone else? Like, I can't bear at the end to have loads of stuff to do, so I try and do it as I go along. Okay, so we are doing the same again, chain 2, and then a treble, an English treble, a US double, going around that end and the one from below. So there's our first treble. I mean, obviously, as written on the pattern, that first chain 2 counts as 1 stitch in the full row count. I hope that's clear. So that's our, so the chain 2 and the 2 trebles count as 1 granny cluster, and then we do a chain 1 round the corner, and then another set of 3 trebles to be the next granny cluster. And now, so I'm pulling these ends along with us, we're going to go in here because that's obviously the next chain space between the granny clusters. So slightly different from the row below because we are now increasing along the edge how many clusters we have. I love granny squares because they feel so logical. Like, yeah, obviously I go in here. This is the next cluster. It's the next chain space between clusters. Although, yeah, as I said, we don't do like a chain between the clusters in this because I don't want there to be big holes, seeing as it's like a winter bonnet balaclava thing. But yeah, I'm not going to talk you through this row really because it's kind of obvious. We just do sets of 3 stitches together, a chain when we get to a corner, all the way around, and then obviously when we get to the end of this round we do that slip stitch to finish off into the top of that chain 2 from the beginning of the round. Yeah, and then we'll be casting on with well, I do it with the original colour from the middle. Oh yeah, here we're just gonna slip stitch here. That's what I just talked about. Done, and cast off. Tidy up the back and get ready to do the last row. And we're just tidying up again, and then we grab the same colour from the middle, our very first row. If you want, obviously, change the colours if you like. And we are going to repeat again, same thing. Chain 2 here, tucking in the ends, crocheting around those 1, 2, and then 2 treble stitches UK, double crochet in US, and that makes your first granny cluster. And then we do the chain 1 to bring it around the corner, and then another granny cluster of 3 of these same stitches again. Again, we've gone we're one round bigger now, so we've got 1 more cluster per row. So we just go into that space, going around these ends again. First space there, cluster of 3, and then there's 1 more space before the next corner. 3 stitches in there, and then once we've done those, I'm going to speed up this footage a bit because I think you're probably getting bored. So we will go round the corner, same again, a cluster here, a chain in the middle to bring it round the corner, and then another cluster in the same hole. And yeah, I will meet you round at the end of the row. And here we are. We're going up to the top of that chain 2 from the beginning of the round, just slip stitching through there, and then we're going to cast off, and we're going to make 14, oh no, hang on, 15 more of them. Is it 16 total? I have to check. Hang on. Yeah, 16 total. And as you can see, I have not been good and kept my ends in check. So I've now got to go around and torture myself chopping them off. But I only have to chop them off because I have sewn them all in. So thank you, past self. And now we're going to move on to this cuff bit. We will do that in the next video. It's very easy. It's the usual rib, the same as my crown. We're going to do one bit for the face and one bit around the neck. And then we're going to sew them together. And I will do another video for sewing together as well, just in case you are interested in that. Alright, so see you soon.